we talk about progressive values, what we're really talking about is how we care and why we care. So I think that the most important progressive value is empathy. And by empathy, I mean that we feel a strong connection with other people and we're willing to put ourselves in their shoes. And when we do that, we feel a responsibility to help end their suffering when people are suffering. So when people have feelings of being treated unfairly, like there's not enough equality, that we have a responsibility to do what we can collectively as a community to care for those people and to provide for them, to be sure that they're given the opportunities that everyone deserves. So I think that when we talk about progressive values, we're really talking about empathy and responsibility. Now when we extend that and we say, all right, what happens when I care about someone else and I want them to have some kind of well-being, well then other values are going to be kind of entailed in that. Those values will include things like fulfillment, that if you care about someone else and you put yourself in their shoes, that you're going to want them to have the same opportunities to pursue their dreams as you have. So you're going to think about their fulfillment. And you're also going to think about basic levels of material wealth, which means leading into prosperity, because people who don't have the basic things they need to take care of themselves are going to suffer, and they're not going to be able to seek their dreams. And all of that really is about freedom. So another very important value is freedom, that each person needs to have the freedom guaranteed to them to have opportunities to pursue their dreams and to pursue their goals, as long as those freedoms that they're expressing don't infringe upon the freedoms of others. And a corollary with that is that you have to have another kind of freedom, which is freedom from harm, freedom from people restricting upon or infringing upon your freedoms. So we have to work as a community to guarantee those things. Now, if we start extending those values out and looking at a community level, then we're going to see other kinds of values that don't sound like normal values. Values like the common good, the commonwealth, that we invest collectively in things that we each individually can't afford, that we have to provide together. Things like education, public infrastructure like highways and libraries, the funding of scientific research and medicine, the things that no one can provide for themselves, that are extensions of those basic levels of progressive values. So when we start talking progressive values, we have a lot we can say.
So can I just kind of ask one thing? The first thing you mentioned was empathy.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your own personal sense of how you develop that value for yourself?
Well, I look at it from the perspective of kind of where psychology teaches us about empathy. But in my experience, I grew up in a small town in Missouri, and I was in a place where there was a lot of poverty, and most people felt like they were pretty much trapped where they were. So I was immersed in a living condition of feeling trapped. So what I felt when I was around other people in that condition was I felt the same lack of opportunity that they felt. And I resonated with that. Their suffering became my suffering because I saw in them the hardships that I experienced. So when I talk about empathy, I really mean it at that very concrete level of the people around you. So for me, it's the people that I interact with directly on a daily basis. When I'm around other people, as I get to know them, I care about them. I want them to do well. They're my friends. They're my family. And so when I look to their condition, I see that it's just an extension of my condition. So to put that in concrete terms again, it's that when someone can't find work, they work really hard, they struggle, and they can't find work that pays their livings, that they aren't able to get health care. And then I look at my own situation and see similarities. The trick is to look into the other to see yourself in them and to see them in you. So when I talk about empathy, I'm really talking about that human connection with other people.
I'm also looking for actual stories of something, some memory, some story of when you remember feeling empathy. Do you remember kind of a situation that happened?
Well, there are other kinds of empathy besides just the empathy for other people. I'm a strong environmentalist. And I know that an experience that I've had is, and it relates to what we're doing here today with picking up trash, is I've had the experience of living in squalor. And one example of living in squalor that really resonated with me, a few years ago I visited India, and I was in Delhi, and I was in Old Delhi, which is a place that has, instead of concrete streets, they have dirt and mud-filled streets. And as I'd walk down those streets, I would smell the refuse, I'd smell the garbage, and people would just use the bathroom on the streets. There were no public restrooms, and there were no public trash cans. So as I would walk along the street, I would be surrounded by garbage and human refuse. And so the experience that I had was of people not caring for their surroundings. And that was a place where I felt empathy for the broader world in two ways. One, I felt the sickness that we are putting on the world by just leaving our garbage lying around. And I felt the sickness of our communities that depend upon having healthy environments in order to survive and in order to be healthy ourselves. So I felt a deep sense of connection with the broader world when I was surrounded by that squalor.